1980, we had the Ten Commandments removed from school. In 1973, we had the abortion became legal. And of course, in 2015, the most recent, we had the same-sex marriage became legal. I think a couple of things were happening during this 55-year period. First of all, I think the church was comatose. I think the church had bought into the blessings that were being bestowed upon this nation and the attractions of our culture. It was about that time that the prosperity gospel came along, and we became tied into that, where we wanted more about the prosperity of the gospel instead of the advancement of the gospel. But also during that time, I think it was a time where the gay community gained a little momentum and a little notoriety in this time. I think that's what was happening in the decline of America. The next thing I want to share with you is what I put together what I think there are 4 categories within the LGBT community, all right? And I want you to listen very closely to what I'm saying, all right? Give me the next graphic, guys. 4 categories. I didn't get this from anywhere. I'm just trying to show you, and I'll make my point on this in just a second. I think there are those in the LGBT community that are they've embraced that lifestyle, and they're very peaceful with that lifestyle. They're very peaceful with themselves. They have no animosity against anyone. They do not look at me as an enemy. They're very respectful of my right to share what I believe about the gospel. Then we have, I think, those that are classified as clueless. They were not raised with any particular biblical background. They were raised in a home that had no religious moorings at all. And so they've grown up without any religious direction, any moral compass in their life. And they've embraced the LGBT or the gay lifestyle. But there again, if they hear someone like me, they just dismiss me as some goofy preacher that is out of date, okay? And yet they would be very respectful of my right to share my opinion. Then you have those that I believe are deceived. These are those who think they're 100% Christian and going to heaven. I disagree with that, but that's a category. And yet they're very respectful of my position and my right to stand here and share what I feel God has and present the biblical view of marriage and sexuality. And yet there's one more division that I think is within the LGBT or the gay community, and that is what I call the militant. These are those who have an agenda. These are those that do not respect my right to stand here. That they are aggressive. That's what militant means. They're an aggressive faction that simply would like to not hear my voice. They're not respectful of my voice. Not only is it within the gay community, but there are those who have shown sympathy to that cause and have bonded themselves to that cause. So I just simply call it the militant left, okay? Now this is what I want to say. I want you to hear me. 95, and I just come up with this number because it's a very high number. 95% of the gay community has no problem with me sharing my position. They don't. 95% of the gay community are good people. They get up, they go to work, they're loving people, they're caring people, they have good jobs, they give to the community. If they're an employer, they're good to their employees. If they're an employee, they're a very good employee. They're great people. There's nothing wrong in that aspect of it. And yet I believe there's a small segment that are the militant portion of the gay community, along with those who identify with their cause, that has become, let me put it this way. I believe that the militant group has in their crosshairs those who believe the biblical position of marriage and sexuality. That's what I believe. All right? And so, let me put it this way. I'm going to capture, because this is the launching pad, all right? You can be gay without being a gay activist. All right? I'll compare that with the church in just a moment. You can embrace the life of the gay community. You can embrace that lifestyle. But you have no problem with me or Christians or anybody else promoting their viewpoint. You don't. You get them to go to work. We can find the common ground. We can go to lunch together. That's not the issue. But there's a segment that simply says, I have a problem with those who believe the Christian point of marriage and sexuality. And they become militant to the point that they want to do something about it, so they come together. All right? Now listen to this. Let me compare that to the church. We have a lot of people who embrace Christianity, but I wouldn't call them Christian activists. Anybody listening to me? They embrace the Christian lifestyle, but they sure don't advance the cause of Christ. They get up, they go to work, they come to church once a month or 2 times a month. But I wouldn't classify them that ones that really embraces the heart and soul of what Christ taught us to do. So I'm just simply saying, ladies and gentlemen, I do not view the entire gay community as my enemy. I said that in the beginning, and I don't. I don't hate anyone. I don't despise anyone, and I do not uncategorically condemn anyone for the life that you've chosen to live. Not one person in here. 200 people sitting here. I don't. But I do believe that there are those who hold the biblical position of marriage and sexuality directly in their crosshairs to do something about it. I'm not talking about with guns. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about the clashing of ideologies. Now, let me give you some quotes that bother me. All right, some alarming quotes. One came from Hillary Clinton. All right, deep-seated cultural codes, religious beliefs, and structural biases have to be changed. Hello? Why does my religious belief have to change to accommodate any cultural position? It's, after all, it's what I believe. Right? It's what I believe. But she was saying this was at an abortion rally where she was speaking, okay? So it was about abortion, but she's sympathetic with the cause, and my religious beliefs don't have to change. It's my belief. I'm not asking you to change any of your beliefs. That's not what I do. I simply said, I'm not expecting anybody to change their beliefs after this is over, and I doubt that happens. I'm just simply saying that's what she said. Let's look at Mitchell Gold. He said, church leaders must be made to take homosexuality off of the sin list. Why should I be made? Hello? This is America. Why should I be made to do something that's a part of my conviction? Why should I be made to do something and change my religious narrative and my religious position? Why should I? The next, number 3. This comes from a lady, Shai Feldblum. Worked in the Obama administration in the U.S. Equal Opportunity Commission. She said that when religious liberty and sexual liberty collide, this is what she said, I'm having a hard time coming up with any case in which religious liberty should win. Right? But these are quotes. These are her thoughts. Why? Why is one above the other? Right? And so, religious liberty and sexual liberty collide. She can't find any reason that religious liberty should win. Now, how do we get here? There ain't. Let me share 3 things about what their goal is. What I think is happening, okay? Now, there again, I'm trying to preface this. I'm not expecting anybody to embrace what I believe. This is America. You're free to believe whatever you want to believe. All right? Number 1, I think they want to marginalize us. What I feel in the crosshair is simply this. Any cultural position we take that has its roots embedded in the Word of God must be dismissed and outdated as archaic. In other words, if there's a cultural position out there, and my position is rooted and embedded in the Word of God, it must be dismissed as outdated and archaic. Secondly, I think they want to silence us. Hate crimes are crimes committed against a protected class such as race, religion, and sexual orientation. Many of that seems saying that there's a case where, when there's action against a particular race or religion or sexual orientation, it won't be long, I don't think, before it's going to include rhetoric or talk. But I've got a question to ask you, okay? Why is it that just a different point of view rises to the level of hate? I want you to think about it. Why? Just because I'm standing here, and according to the Constitution. I have a right to do that. Why is it that just because I have a different point of view along a social issue, that the narrative is now that I'm a hate monger? Why? When did that happen? You see? Why is it that way? The third thing is the destruction of marriage. Mesha Gishin, a gay activist, said this: "It's a no-brainer that we should have the right to marry, but I also think equally that it's a no-brainer that the institution of marriage should not exist." Let's go on. Fighting for gay marriage generally involves lying about what we are going to do with marriage when we get there. Because we lied that the institution of marriage is not going to change, and that is a lie. The institution of marriage is going to change, and it should change. And again, I don't think it should exist. I'm not sure what all she means. Marriage has already changed. It changed in June of 2015. I don't know what she means, but this is what I can surmise. If everything is marriage, nothing is marriage. The oral arguments before the Supreme Court, when it's being argued in 2015, I think it was Liberty Counsel, simply said, listen, the same arguments that are being made for same-sex marriage can be used for polygamy. So where does this end? Is that what she has in mind? I don't know. But that's her statement. Now, how did we get here? All right? How did we get here? There was a twofold plan, and let me show you that twofold plan. They had to attack the issue from two different angles. Number one, they had to in the court of public opinion, and then the opinions of the court. These are the two arenas where things had to be fought. Okay, we have to win in the court of public opinion, and then we have to win in the opinions of the court. So let's look at the court of public opinion first. A landmark article that was written. Read that title. What does it mean to you? I mean, let it interpret itself to you. Two authors wrote this article, and it simply says, Strategies of the Homosexual Movement. That's their word. The overhauling of straight America. All right? This is an article that was written. These two men were geniuses. Let me just, don't be offended by this, I call them the prophets of the movement. They were geniuses.